Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 66 of the Hammer Territory podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening here in mid-August, and I am joined, as I often am, by Scott Coleman. And Scott, in typical 2024 Braves fashion, it was a good week for the Braves on the field, and then, unfortunately, on Sunday, the Grim Reaper started to inch up on us a little bit and is hovering over this episode.
Hey, Brad. In some ways, this was the most 2024 Braves outcome imaginable. They bounced back after just a disastrous weekend at Coors Field. They go 5-2 this week, pick up a couple of really nice wins. And of course, as fate would have it, they may have lost maybe the most irreplaceable player in their lineup right now, as Austin Riley got hit with a pitch. So we don't know. We are Sunday night here. I think everybody is holding their breath at this point, but man, it just feels like the Braves just win. There's like some good positive vibes and a good week overall. Of course, there's always something that seems to just drag everything else down. And in this case, we just have to hope that Austin is okay.
Right. We'll come back to it, but just to timestamp this, we're recording this about 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. Riley, as Scott just said, was hit with a fastball in the right hand. He's had a couple of tests that were inconclusive. Basically, it's been a TBD until the Braves get back to Atlanta. They are probably flying home as of maybe right now or a little bit after this, and then an MRI probably to come on Monday. So hold your breath there. We'll come back to that later on in the podcast. We should also say at the top of the show that we are part of the Foul Territory network of podcasts. Also, please encourage all of us really to subscribe, rate, and review Hammer Territory anywhere you get your podcasts. Check us out and subscribe on Apple, on Spotify, on Overcast. Also, we're on YouTube. It's audio only, but please go ahead and subscribe there as well. Just do us a favor there to help us grow the show via that platform. And yeah, as Scott just alluded to, it was a good week. 5-2 on the field. That brings the Braves back within 7 games of the Phillies and 2 games ahead of the Mets to stay in the playoff race. And people probably know this by now, but about a week and a half ago or so, the Braves fell out of the playoffs entirely. Then they had the rough weekend, but things are looking up as a result of all of their strong play this week. Scott, we should at least take a vibe check pre-Riley injury, or maybe putting that to the side for now. It felt like, we're famous for saying this, but it felt like there was some good vibes coming the Braves' way this week. A little bit of a hiccup on Friday, as we'll get into in a second, but then a couple of really nice wins, including a blowout on Saturday, a not a comfortable win on Sunday, but certainly one that they were in relative control over for most of the way. And it does seem like they're playing better baseball. A couple of eruptions offensively that we'll get into. But for me, it just feels like there's a little bit of an air of confidence. Again, pending Riley. We'll stop giving that caveat every 5 seconds in a second, but I just feel like it was a good week, and we should probably just lead with that reality.
Yeah, you look back on the 10-game West Coast trip. Of course, they lost 2 games to the Rockies, but I mean, both of those games were very winnable, and the Braves should have won both. Giants are a solid ball club playing good baseball right now, and you take 3 out of 4 with your only loss to Logan Webb, who is probably going to be top 3 in Cy Young at the end of the season. And then despite another frustrating, probably should have been a win on Friday night against the Angels, the Braves bounced back with back-to-back wins over the weekend. And thankfully, not only are the Braves playing better, but the New York Mets have fallen on hard times. They've had a bad last couple of weeks. We're going to preview a very important series with the Phillies soon, but even the Phillies over the last month and a half have not been great. I mean, I believe they're under 500 since the 4th of July. So the door is still open. The Braves are still in the playoffs. And I think we have said it probably 8 million times on the show, and we'll say it one more. Really, it is just about getting to the playoffs and then trying to get hot for a month. Of course, you have to have healthy baseball players in order to make that run in the playoffs. And as we know, there's just been one thing after another, really since opening day. And I mean, not even Austin Riley, but even Jorge Soler was going to be a talking point tonight just because he has missed the last 4 games with what seems to be a mild hamstring issue. But even those injuries are pretty concerning on their own.
Yes, and we'll circle back to that near the end of the podcast. We should at least knock out Friday's game. It was the one not great result over the weekend, a 3-2 loss in which the offense kind of reverted back to where the offense has been for most of the season in some ways. They did get on base quite a bit. 7 hits, 7 walks, got on base with a hit by pitch. That isn't bad, but it only led to 2 runs because of some grim numbers with opportunistic situations for the offense. I will just say on the positive side, Ozuna got on base 4 times. Olsen got on base 3 times. There was some bright spots, but in the end, they kind of squandered some opportunities and ended up with 2 runs. It was hard to blame the pitching on that night. It was pretty much all an offensive loss.
Yeah, it should have been a win. I mean, 15 base runners and you only get 2 runs. No extra base hits was incredibly painful. 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position, 11 runners left on base. I mean, that's kind of been a thing for the Braves lately where it seems like they bounce into a double play like every other inning, which just kills your rallies. And, thankfully they did have a better offensive performance, maybe just better execution on Saturday night when they had runners on base, because they have done a better job of drawing walks and putting together better at bats. Friday night's game was maddening. I think afterwards I tweeted that this was the most frustrating Braves team since the 2014 club that had a lot of expectations, but of course fell flat and then kind of kick-started the rebuild. And obviously this year's team is not anywhere near on that same trajectory. But Friday's loss, especially coming off a shutout on Thursday to lose that game against the Giants, it was kind of an eye roll, and you felt like maybe another game got away from them, despite Spencer Schwellenbach pitching pretty well once again.
You heard it here first, folks. Scott's calling for the rebuild as he just compared this team to 2014.
God. No, I am not. There are people in Twitter who would tell you this team needs to rebuild. That's not going to happen. But it has been a between the injuries and just the seemingly many frustrating losses this year. It has been a real test of all of our fanhood, I guess, to keep tuning in every single night.
We have praised Schwellenbach endlessly the last few weeks, and we won't do a ton of that, but I just have one set of numbers to throw at you because he was, again, pretty good, as you referenced, with 8 strikeouts on Friday since the beginning of July. So about 7 weeks or so, he has a 2.86 ERA, and here's the money stat, 53 strikeouts and 5 walks. When your rookie has a 10.5 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio over 2 months, you're doing something right, and we love Spencer. That's not hidden on this podcast, but just worth noting again how crazy that is for a 24-year-old.
Yeah, he's been so impressive. And, I think in a way there was something to take away from Schwellenbach's start on Friday. It seemed like after a really great start, the Angels hitters eventually started to sit on his curveball. And when he started to run into some trouble, it really was all exclusively on his curve and his slider, and they really couldn't do much against the fastball. And I hope that is maybe a learning opportunity for Spencer to kind of see that when hitters are sitting on his breaking pitches, having multiple ways to get guys out. On the whole, his performance was strong, but I think it was clear that the Angels were looking for one pitch and one pitch only, and they took advantage of it a little bit. And the Braves still should have won the baseball game. If they get one more hit with all of the runners in scoring position, they probably win the ball game. But again, man, even though it wasn't maybe the best we have seen Spencer Schwellenbach over the last month, 5+ innings, only 4 hits, couple of runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. It should have been enough for the Braves to get the win, and hopefully Spencer can take something from that start and have another good one against the Phillies this upcoming week.
Hey FT fam, it's Alana Rizzo. I can't stop talking about Vuori. Vuori is perfect if you are sick and tired of traditional old workout gear. I wear Vuori in all settings, not just in the gym, because honestly, it's comfier than whatever you're currently wearing. No joke. I'm wearing Vuori daily leggings right now. They're high-waisted with the drawstring and cupped ankles. They look good and they feel great. You're going to love them. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they are offering 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/foul. That's VUORI.com/foul. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to vuori.com/foul and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing.
We can go from there to Saturday, which was much more fun for everyone based on the execution, like you referenced earlier, as well as just some more power. And the offense scores 11 runs on Saturday. They scored double-digit runs for the 3rd time in 8 days, which last year was like ho-hum for this team. They did it all the time. But as a reminder, they did not score 10 runs in a baseball game for like 4.5 months before that. It sounds impossible. I understand. Sounds impossible, but literally 4+ months between 10-run games, and they just had 3 of them in 8 days. So baby steps, I suppose, Scott, because the offense was badly needed.
I think one thing that feels different with the lineup right now than where it was maybe a month ago is the Braves are getting on base much more than they were before. And part of that is personnel. Obviously, even though he hasn't played the last couple of days, one of Jorge Soler's great skills is drawing walks and getting on base. Kind of quietly, Whit Merrifield has a 16% walk rate since joining the Braves and is getting on base at like a 375 clip. And the way the lineup has been constructed lately, Merrifield has been in that 9th spot more times than not. So he is feeding into the top of the order where you have those 4 big hitters. Sean Murphy is an underrated on-base guy. He draws walks, I think, at like a 12% rate this season. And obviously, it's not rocket science here, but if you get more runners on base with the power that has been very prevalent as well over the last couple weeks and months, the Braves are hitting home runs like they were last season at a very, very good pace. So clearly, getting on base is the name of the game for this team. It is not a coincidence that when the offense was so bad in May and June, they were like bottom 3 in baseball in OBP. It's been much better lately, and hopefully, if they get some good news on Austin Riley, especially, they can keep rolling and keep putting up crooked numbers because, just trying to win baseball games when you're scoring 2 or 3 runs every night is obviously very not easy to do.
Yeah, to back you up there on getting on base, I mean, it's a simple thing. Of course, it's the Moneyball thing, all that stuff, but it is objectively true that the Braves did not do a very good job of that for a very long time this season. And just to throw some more numbers out there, the ones you gave, like, Merrifield, Soler has a 400 on base with the Braves. Sean Murphy, since the All-Star break, has like a 383 on base. Ozuna, like in the 370s. Even guys like Arcia up in the 360s. Like, everyone's getting on base at a higher clip than they were previously. Even guys who are not like always getting on base a ton, like Matt Olson, he's walking a lot more than he was earlier in the season, for instance. So just that emphasis, that reality of just having, it's very simple. Having runners on makes life easier for everybody involved. And, for instance, a small thing here, like Ozuna hits the 3-run homer in the first inning on Saturday, and 3-run homers have been the outlier this year. There's been a lot of solo home runs for this team all season long. Part of that's just not having guys on base. That one broke it open a little bit earlier in the game. Laureano homered, Merrifield homered. They got 12 hits, but a lot of them were home runs compared to the day before. Also, Michael Harris had the hardest hit ball of his career. I will CC that to our friend Stephen Tolbert, who found that. But about 115-mile-an-hour single for Michael Harris, who's looking like Michael Harris again at the plate. That's not a small thing either. So really a great offensive performance all the way across. 12 hits, 4 walks, 11 runs. And it's not every night, but there's been more of those than there had been for most of the year.
And Michael Harris has looked terrific since coming off the IL. I mean, he hits the grand slam in his first plate appearance since coming back, but I think the plate discipline has been really good. He drew 2 more walks out of the leadoff spot on Sunday. Should have had a 3rd one if the home plate umpire didn't blow a ball 4 call. But Harris has been hitting for power. He's working the count really well. And another player who we wanted to give just kind of a quick shout out to because he's been a little under the radar. And admittedly, the defense for Ramon Laureano has been adventurous to be nice and a disaster to be mean. But Ramon Laureano has really hit as well a 138 WRC plus with 6 home runs since joining the Braves. And as a reminder, Ramon Laureano was signed off the scrap heap after Cleveland DFA'd him about 2 months ago. So obviously I think every time a baseball gets to him in the outfield, we all hold our breath a little bit, but the bat has really shown up and, he has pretty clearly just completely surpassed Adam Duvall in the lineup the last couple of days.
It's pretty crazy. It's almost the same amount of plate appearances with the Braves now as he had with the Guardians. With the Guardians, he had a 494 OPS in 31 games. And it's a lot better than that with the Braves. It's in the 800s. So I don't know how real it is, but he's hitting for sure. I went back and forth with some people on Twitter lightheartedly this weekend, kind of discussing who's been more damaging defensively between Laureano and Duvall, because Duvall's had some bad moments recently too. I still cannot get over Laureano running past the ball twice in the same week. Like that's it's impossible for a major league outfielder to do that. I mean, I've never seen anything like it twice. It blows my mind. But hey, if you hit like this, it doesn't actually matter that much.
Yeah, no, it's been a really nice find with the never-ending injuries. Jared Kelenic has really cooled over the last month and a half.
Yeah.
I presume if the Braves can actually get everyone healthy for a change, you get Harrison center, you have Soler in right, and then you presumably are going to have a platoon of Kelenic and Laureano. Although, of course, if Laureano keeps hitting like this, I mean, it's going to be tough to keep his bat out of the lineup, at least for the first 6 or 7 innings of most nights. And then you can always sub him out for defense later on. But really, I mean, we haven't talked a ton, at least the positives for Ramon Laureano. And,
now we have.
Yeah, right. There we go. We gotta try to give credit where credit is due. And Ramon really has done a nice job since coming over.
For sure. Getting Merrifield and Laureano for the cost of nothing is another notch in the Alex column of being positive.
Yeah.
It's the small things. You're not going to get huge credit for that, but signing, literally giving up nothing for either one of those guys, and them even contributing for the last few weeks. Even if they both go ice cold and don't help you at all the rest of the year, bridging this gap amidst injuries has been very, very impressive and needed for this team on the margins. Not on the margins is Chris Sale. So Chris Sale was on the mound on Saturday. He didn't have to be incredible because they had the offensive game that they had, but 6 innings, 10 strikeouts. He was once again fantastic. We talked about it all year long, but he is pretty much the clear leader now in Cy Young race for the National League. Still a lot of time to go on that, but if the season ended today, he would almost certainly win it. We've lauded him all year long, but another reminder of just how good he is was Saturday, because it was like a cruise control game for him, and yet he still was awesome and dominant and all those things.
And currently, Chris Sale leads the National League for the pitching Triple Crown, which has not been done since 2011. So 13.
Here's why I tell you that wins don't matter, Scott. Sorry to say, wins don't matter. But hey, it would still count in the record books, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Although anytime you could do something for the first time since 2013 or 2011.
Oh, I'll take it. I'm just saying. Wins being part of Triple Crown is like cringeworthy to me, but I understand. It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's an old school stat. I mean, it's like in the on the other side of it, in the Triple Crown race offensively.
RBI, baby.
Yeah, RBI and batting average, 2 very old school stats, but Marcell Ozuna is also in the running for the National League Triple Crown on the offensive side. And Chris Sale currently, as of recording this, is plus 2 wins over anybody else. He has 1 more strikeout than I believe Dylan Cease, and he leads ERA by about 1/10 of a run. So if the season was over today, Chris Sale acquired for currently in the minor leagues Vaughn Grissom, as well as $18 million from the Red Sox to pay his 2024 salary, is in the driver's seat to win the pitching Triple Crown. He's like a virtual lock for comeback player of the year as well. And just a really cool thing that Pitching Ninja pointed out on Twitter. So this is who Chris Sale is as the ultimate competitor. It was 9-1 in the 6th inning. Chris Sale threw a wild pitch in the 6th that got away from Travis d'Arnaud, and it allowed a runner on third base to come in and score. It was then 9-2, bases empty, and Chris Sale, as pissed off as he has probably been all season long, reaches back and throws the hardest pitch of his season at 99.2 miles an hour up in the zone to strike the batter out. This guy is a maniac in all of the right ways. He is such a gamer. He seems like he truly strives for perfection every time he goes out there. And the first year of the Chris Sale experience has been so much fun to watch, and just what a bounce back for obviously an incredibly talented pitcher.
No, he's been incredible. And, the strikeouts are piling up, 105 in the last 12 starts for Chris Sale. So you're averaging like almost 9 per outing in that stretch. That's obviously just monster stuff. I said before, but the actual betting odds, he's minus 360 at FanDuel to win the Cy Young, minus 310 at DraftKings. If you don't know what that means, basically that's the implied odds of that. It's like 75 to 80% of him winning the Cy Young. So not a lock, but certainly the favorite right now. And I didn't know this until we were talking about it today offline. Shouts to Chris Willis of Battery Power. The last Brave Cy Young winner, which was a long time ago, was Tom Glavine in 1998. Scott. It's been a long time since the Braves won the Cy Young Award.
Yeah, I mean, and off the top of my head, I know Max Fried was second a couple of years ago.
Yep.
I think Russ Ortiz was.
Oh baby.
Dude, growing up, Russ Ortiz was my guy. Like, when you're Russ Ortiz and Brian Jordan of all people were like when you're a kid, you have like random favorite players. Russ Ortiz, Brian Jordan. I mean, I love Chipper and Andrew and Maddox and all those guys. But yeah, I mean,
by the way, I looked it up for you. He finished fourth in Cy Young voting. Russ Ortiz.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, he won 21 games, I think, or something. But obviously, Chris would be very, very deserving. Let us sincerely cross our fingers and say a prayer that he stays healthy over the home stretch, because I would love to see what he could do in a short playoff series. And he would be very, very deserving of this. And I think just on a national level, Chris has gotten a lot of attention for just being awesome this season. We all know locally how good he's been, but even ESPN and MLB.com had him on the front cover. I think it must have been this morning when I looked, and really just a special season for a player who the Braves hit a grand slam in acquiring.
Absolutely. Just for more on the Cy Young thing, Tim Hudson finished fourth one year in the Braves uniform. Just found that. A couple of other, Strider finished fourth last year, I believe. So they've had some candidates, but Sale is right now the front runner, and it has been a heck of a ride. And by the way, imagine, Scott, people actually thinking that Alex is the problem after he did that. Alex got Chris Sale for a song. Apologies to Von Grissom, but not just Von Grissom, but the fact that Boston is paying Chris Sale is like laugh out loud funny in August of 2024.
Yeah, great addition. And I mean, what was Alex supposed to do?
Correct.
Was he supposed to build a roster that could withstand losing like literally a fourth of its best players? I mean, there is time for criticism of a GM.
Sure.
We have done it many times on the show over the years with things he has done or not done. But yeah, man, I mean, no GM in baseball or any professional sport. Obviously, you're an Atlanta Hawks NBA guy. I mean, if the Hawks lost their four best players, would they have a prayer? No, of course not. No team, regardless of sport, would. And he has done. I mean, the Braves as a whole, being able to withstand the injuries they have withstood, and still being in the playoffs here with about 6 weeks to go, is like a borderline miracle. And who knows? Maybe if they can actually get healthy and get into the dance, they'll be able to make some noise.
Big shout out to America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh, for helping us eat good during this busy time of the year for us. With HelloFresh, you get pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. It's home cooking made easy, fun, and affordable.
HelloFresh makes it easy, even for picky eaters like Scott. There's a changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from each week. Customize it to fit your taste. There's protein and veggie swap options too. The recipes are easy to follow. Just choose your delivery day, open your box, cook, and eat.
My house is busy with sports, but family dinners are important. My fam eats better, healthier, and we cook so much easier with HelloFresh.
And for a limited time, kids eat free. Go to HelloFresh.com/FTKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/FTKids.
Speaking of injuries, we already led with it, but Sunday's game, the headliner, unfortunately, is the first inning exit of Austin Riley. X-ray and CT scans is conclusive. Again, we said that before, but just to reemphasize that, he'll have an MRI presumably on Monday, or maybe even late on Sunday. We will see when they land. It's a long flight from Los Angeles to Atlanta, as I can attest, even on a private jet as they're flying on. Look, we're not going to get into all of the fallout here because our fingers are certainly crossed. But I think you alluded to this earlier as Austin being arguably the least replaceable player on the roster right now. He's not having his best season. He's been fine, but not great. But the reality is, Scott, they don't have a third baseman behind him. They have some names of guys we can name, like, they could play Luke Williams, who played today at third base. Whit Merrifield played a little bit there for Philly this season. They have Nacho Alvarez. They have Zach Short in AAA. He's not currently on the roster, but was on the roster before. Those names are not exactly exciting. So let's just say this, if Austin Riley is out for any length of time, it is danger, danger, danger on top of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make a pretty easy argument that he is the most irreplaceable player on this team.
There's just nobody behind him. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because look, Ozuna has been considerably better than Austin Riley this year, but Ozuna is a DH. You can find DH options. Like you can play Soler there. Like knock on wood, if you lose Chris Sale, that obviously would be awful. Chris Sale's been their best player this year, in my opinion, including Ozuna. Maybe those two guys are 1 and 2, but a pitcher is a pitcher. Like it's easier to replace a pitcher than it is your everyday third baseman. So I think that we are aligned on that. I think if there was one guy you would say on August 18th the Braves couldn't afford to lose, it would have been Riley.
Yeah, I mean, and defensively, Austin has been really, really good. Offensively, even with the slow start, I mean, it feels like by the end of the season, if he gets to continue hitting, Austin's overall numbers are going to be very similar to what he's done based on the pace he has been at since that side injury back in May. It is just crushing. And God, let's hope that when he gets additional testing, maybe there's a bruise, maybe it's something minor where, I mean, even if Austin only has to miss a week or 2, it would be incredible. Obviously, a day-to-day would be the dream. I am not holding my breath for that, but I hope to be wrong. But yeah, man, I mean, there's nobody on this roster who can do anything like Austin Riley can. I guess, Brad, we could do a little bit of predicting here. I mean, I don't know what they would do, honestly. I guess they would just throw Luke Williams at third base and hope it's not a disaster, but I don't know.
That was today's option in a pinch. Look, if there is, we'll probably do an emergency podcast on this if the results are bad. So hold on tight for that one if necessary. But yeah, it's some combination of what other guys I named. I mean, Williams is the internal option. He's the only backup infielder on the team right now with Ozzie injured. Merrifield is the utility guy, but Ozzie's going to be out for a while longer. So you're just kind of papering over a little bit. Nacho played some third base this year for Gwinnett. They didn't love that experience the first time around. Maybe he'd be better there with a little bit more seasoning. Who the heck knows? But the point stands that we just said again, like they don't have an option. They don't have any. There are bad options and worse options for third base if Austin Riley is out for any length of time. So by the way, just to back you up on the resurgence, because he had that kind of downturn earlier this year. Since mid-June, basically, I've just pulled this like a 55-game sample size, OPS of 940. He's back to being Austin Riley and has been for 2 months. So tough scene, Scott. I gotta say, tough scene. That's enough on that, I think, right? Just to keep the vibes somewhat reasonable on Sunday evening.
Yeah, it is painfully fitting for the season, and God, let's hope for all of the bad injury luck the Braves have had this season, maybe, just maybe, they will catch a break here, for lack of a better word, and be okay and have Austin back out there sooner rather than later.
I was so excited to just like full on dance on the podcast about Charlie Morton on Sunday. That should have been the headliner of the show, Scott. I should have come on and said, oh, ho, ho, Scott tried to retire my guy Chuck like a week ago. He's come back from the dead. Last 2 starts, 15 Ks, 3 walks, 3 runs allowed. And that still happened. I'll just crow a little bit, but unfortunately I couldn't do it with my full chest like I would have if Riley wasn't hurt today.
I was going to cue you and let you do a victory lap. But yeah, I mean, hey, credit to Charlie. Obviously, the offense didn't do very much on Sunday, but he did a really, really nice job of limiting the Angels to just 1 run.
You tried to jinx him too. I shared that on Twitter. For people who don't have Twitter, I shared Scott's text. We were going back and forth as we often do on Sundays, and Charlie had a no-no going through 4 innings, and I get a text from Scott about Chuck Morton's masterclass, and then within 5 minutes you're texting me, I guess not, something like that was the follow-up.
Bases loaded.
Bases loaded, no outs immediately in the 5th inning, but hey, he got out of it.
Yeah, no, credit to Charlie. He played America's favorite game, hit a batter in the foot with a curveball with the bases loaded and 2 strikes.
It was a bad time. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, so God bless this listener. Someone was immediately like, well, that was the worst time for Scott's favorite game. I'm like, yeah, that's correct. Bases loaded, no outs is the worst time for Charlie to do what Charlie does with hitting someone. But hey, I don't know how I got out of that. Honestly, I was like covering my eyes that entire inning, but it happened. And then Dylan Lee took over from there, and it was smooth sailing. So we had fun.
Hey, credit to Dylan Lee.
God, Dylan Lee rules. He just does.
Yeah, he is fantastic, especially with the fact that the Braves are presumably not going to have AJ Minter for the rest of the season. Dylan Lee and Aaron Bummer are going to throw some very, very important pitches for this team over the final 6 weeks and hopefully deep into the playoffs. Dylan Lee is awesome. We have talked about it on the show for many years, and he is now, I mean, I would have Dylan Lee as my number one left-handed option in a must-win type of situation.
I think it was our guy at Capitol Avenue on Twitter that said this kind of jokingly today. Like, do you remember that this season the Braves essentially sent Dylan Lee to AAA just so they could have Bryce Elder start a game? Because that happened this season.
Yeah,
and Dylan Lee is like a top 10 left-handed reliever in the league this season. Like, I'm not even kidding. By the way, that might sound like hyperbole. It actually isn't. Dylan Lee has literally been like a top 10 lefty reliever in the sport this year.
Yeah,
and he was in the minors twice. So.
Yeah. World Series starter, Dylan Lee.
Oh my God, that's true. I forgot almost that for like half a second. I forgot that did happen as well. What a career for Dylan Lee. He's 30 years old. It feels like he's not 30 years old, but he is. Yeah. But you'll never be able to take away that start from him. And I think he started a game last year too during the regular season, something like that, something weird like that. So we love Dylan Lee. Shouts to him.
Yes, we do.
Okay, Scott. That's the games. We went through the games. 2 wins. We've mentioned it, but 5-2 on the week is very, very strong. Soler, we kind of teased it around it earlier, but the mild hamstring strain, there was no really update today. They kind of did the cautious thing that SNIT does, which I actually am in favor of. Give the guy an extra day. They got Monday off. I had no issue at all with him sitting the rest of the weekend. Hamstrings you don't fool around with. If he doesn't play Tuesday, the alarm bells will sound. I will say that. Because it's the biggest game of the year so far, you could argue. It's the Phillies at home after an off day on Tuesday. Obviously, you don't want to put too much emphasis on one game, but are you with me on that? I feel like if he doesn't start on Tuesday, I'll start to worry. But if not, it's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. And so far, the Braves and Jorge have said all the right things. It sounds like a pretty minor hamstring issue, although hamstrings are probably the scariest recurring.
No such thing, Scott. That's minor, I suppose.
And thank God, I mean, when the injury happened, I don't think anyone really even picked up on it in real time. He just slowly kind of walked back to the dugout, but it wasn't like one of those hammies where you see it happen in real time and think, oh, dear God, that's a 3-month injury. Because those do happen.
Obliques and hamstrings are like the death of baseball players sometimes. It's just those, you just can't do anything about them either. And they're hard to rehab, and it's tough. But yeah, hopefully he's okay. All of the on-record quotes that I have seen have been positive, and they won without him on Saturday and Sunday. So they did the right thing there, and hopefully he's in the lineup on Tuesday, leading off, because he's their best leadoff option. And we'll again, that's a secondary of cross of the fingers compared to Riley, but they need him too. They need Soler as well, and he's been great. We said it before, but he's been really, really good since they got him, and he's done. I mean, defensively, similar to Laureano, it's been an adventure out there. But if Soler gets on base and hits, I don't really care. Just catch the ball every once in a while. It's fine.
Yeah. And having Michael Harris in center field will only help that cause.
Yep.
Giving him some support in the gaps will be helpful for sure.
That is accurate. It seems as if a bit of positive news injury-wise will be happening on Tuesday, because Reynaldo Lopez is now in line to return semi-officially. The Braves did go with TBA on their official probable pitchers. That is still currently listed as TBA, but I believe it was Toscano. The AJC reported that it's going to be Reynaldo. That was the assumption of everyone when they went to TBD, because that's kind of like in line for him. He hasn't pitched in 3 weeks or so, but hey, Reynaldo, welcome back. Here's the Phillies.
Yeah, all eyes will be on Reynaldo on Tuesday night. He pitched pretty well with Gwinnett in a rehab start. It will be a full week of rest for him, as he pitched on Tuesday of this past week with the Stripers. The velocity was good. It sounds like his command, especially of the secondary pitches, was not great, according to the prospect guys over at Battery Power. But obviously, it will be great to have him back in the rotation. We know how good he was early in the season. And let's hope that if there's a silver lining out of this, that letting him have 3 weeks away will allow him to just kind of hit the reset button, rest a little bit. We know obviously he is well above his recent season career highs in innings pitched, and having a effective Reynaldo Lopez in the middle of the rotation is only going to give this team a boost. I think it's just it's going to be a big challenge for him on Tuesday night against Philly, and let's hope he can start that series off on the right foot with a strong effort.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy for him. Philly is quite good. They did lose today, finally, because they had been red hot all of a sudden again, but that's one to circle. I have to laugh. You probably didn't see this because we're recording when it happened, but Justin Toscano just dropped his game story on the Riley exit today. And in his Twitter tease of the story, he quoted Ramon Laureano's reaction to Austin Riley getting a hit in the hand, and I can't say the word on the podcast. It starts with an F. It's a bad word.
I was gonna say it's a bad 4-letter word, and we're a family show. So.
I just thought it was a very, very apt lead by Justin and by Ramon, and everybody was in line with that one. All right. Well, before we get out of here, it is the Phillies. So day off on Monday for the Braves as they travel back from California, where they had the success this week. Long flight, hold your breath on Riley, and then the Phillies come in. They have not been very good since the break. They're under 500 since All-Star break. Now, they did just have a winning streak, as I just referenced. They did lose today. I believe they won 4 in a row before that. So they kind of found their footing a little bit. That they've left the door open a little. I was doing a radio interview earlier with our friend Grant McCauley, and he was like, hey, they left the door open. I'm like, yeah, they kind of did. I'm not sure how open it is. It's a 7-game deficit as of this series. But as we've discussed before, the Braves and Phillies play 7 times in the next 2 weeks. So it's now or never time for the Braves. They have to win some of these games. But the door is cracked open. Like Philly could be up by 12 right now with the way the Braves have played, and they're not.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, it's funny. I tweeted out the comparison in records for the Braves and the Phillies since the 4th of July. And I think they, A, both have like the same record, and B, I think both teams were like 3 games below 500.
Yeah.
And there were even some Phillies fans in our mentions who were like, oh, so it's not just the Phillies who are absolutely driving their fan base insane. And I think it was pretty appropriate. Clearly the Phillies got off to an unbelievable schedule. Part of that was probably the fact that they played a very soft schedule early on. The schedule has gotten more difficult, and some of their players who were just on like unbelievable paces have cooled quite a bit.
Yeah.
But obviously, regardless of the standings and where things are, this is a very important series for both clubs. If you're the Phillies, you probably feel like you can come in and kind of slam the door, even if you haven't done that so far in the season. And if you're the Braves, especially at home, you feel like if you can even just take 2 out of 3, you will continue to make up ground with 5.5 weeks left to go in the season by the end of it. Obviously, a sweep would be incredible. But it's going to be a big time matchup between these two clubs. And really, they just haven't seen a lot of each other. I mean, when was the last time these two teams played? Was it May? Because with the new balanced schedule, you just don't see your divisional foes like you used to.
Yeah, it's been a while. And, a lot of the times in these recent years when it's been the Braves and the Mets doing these races down the stretch, they play a ton late in the year. They have these 2 series, but it's only they're playing 13 times. And yeah, they saw each other. I'm looking now. It's been a while. Am I missing something? Oh yeah, there it is. They played in July, so they played once in July, 3-gamer. Before that, it was the opening week. Before that, though, it was the first series of the year. So they played 3 games since March 31st against the Phillies.
There you go.
It's been a while, and even then, like they have this stretch now, but then they don't play each other the last 4 weeks of the year, which is weird. Like it's just the way it is with this new schedule and all that. But yeah, I looked it up now actually. Since the break, we've talked about how the Braves have not played that well since the break, and that is 100% accurate. They've actually gained ground on Philly since the All-Star break. They went into the break down 8.5, and now they're down 7, despite objectively not playing well. But Philly had this real downturn that they were kind of maybe due for, and once they heated back up, the Braves have now done the same. So look, there's still danger. We should at least, I think I led with it early on the podcast. If I didn't, that was my mistake. But the Braves are still only 2 games ahead of the Mets for the wild card. That's more of a practical concern, is just getting in the playoffs. I think we have to say out loud that the division race is not over, but it is a secondary concern, at least for me right now. It's a long shot, to be sure.
Yeah, get in the playoffs first and foremost. And it does feel like the time is now. And maybe that's an obvious thing to say as we hit the last 2 weeks of August. But if the Braves are going to chase down Philly, 7 games is not impossible. I think it was about this time in the calendar 2 years ago when the Braves were 7 or 8 games back of the New York Mets, and of course chased them down for that crazy run. Sure, I want to win the division. I think everybody out there listening wants to win the division. I will take a playoff bid, obviously, over everything else. But if the Braves can keep it going this week against Philly, and then they take on the Nationals, who sold off some pieces, let's hope that things can keep going in the right direction, because I believe after the series this week, the Phillies continue to have a pretty tough schedule on the horizon.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll throw some numbers at you real quick without prepping you for this. The Braves currently, this is Fangraphs, it's updated as of right now to this moment. They have an 80.6% chance to make the playoffs and a 10.7% chance to win the division. Does that sound reasonable to you on both fronts?
Yes and yes. If you would have asked me the division chances, which I was guessing you were prepping me on,
I thought about it.
I would have said like 85-15, which no, is not zero. Obviously, the Phillies are in a good spot. If we could reverse it, of course, you would take a 7-game lead for the Braves at this point in the calendar. But
yes,
we have seen when the Braves just kind of put it all together, and it's been few and far between, but this team clearly, despite all of the injuries, has found a way to win more times than not. This team can really turn it on when they are firing on all cylinders, and you just have to hope that continues the rest of the way. And who knows, maybe they can chase down Philly, or even if they just get in the playoffs. Again, we've said it a million times, just get into the playoffs and see what happens.
A few more notes, then we'll sign off. Tuesday is Zach Wheeler, who is probably number 2 to Chris Sale in this Cy Young race against Reynaldo Lopez. That's probably advantage Philadelphia objectively, even in Atlanta. Wednesday is Aaron Nola and Max Fried, a matchup that we've seen like 100,000 times, I have to say, in my life, it feels like.
I was going to say 100,000 feels light.
Yeah, which is, hey, 2 great pitchers, 2 not like uber aces, but certainly the next tier down, excellent pitchers. And then it's a TBD for Philly on Thursday against Schwellenbach for the Braves. That is a Fox National game, as you pointed out to me. That's a national only. I believe there's no Bally on that one. So just as a PSA for Thursday, it's still a few days away now, obviously. But if you want to find that game, you will not find it on your usual dial.
Yeah, and a lot of intrigue in these matchups. Zach Wheeler has obviously been at the top of his craft for many years. Let's hope that Reynaldo is comfortable and is peppering the zone and getting back to striking out batters, because that's something that had kind of gotten away from him a little bit in his last couple of starts before the injury. We know that Max Fried has not been his usual self since coming off the injured list. This will be his 4th start since coming off the IL, and let's hope the command finds itself. Just hasn't really been there in his first 3 starts, but it seems like he's inching in the right direction every time he's gone out there. And then a big boy start for Spencer Schwellenbach on Thursday night. You mentioned national television, probably the biggest start of his short regular life in the major leagues. We'll see who Philly ends up throwing out there. They've had a couple of pitchers banged up on the IL. But yeah, man, important series. I hope that Truist Park is jacked up. God, let us hope that Austin Riley is batting 3rd for the team, or I guess he's batting 2nd these days. But regardless, he can bat wherever the hell he wants if he's out there.
That's true.
Let's hope that Austin's hand is okay. And it's just, man, so fitting for this team. Great week, exciting series on the horizon, and also your third baseman, who's maybe the best third baseman in baseball, might have a broken hand, might have a broken finger. I don't know. It just sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, objectively speaking, I think it's a coin flip series because the Phillies have the pitching advantage because they have Wheeler going and the Braves do not have Sale going. That probably leans things to Philly. But the games are in Atlanta. Braves have a day off, all that stuff. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, of course, and we'll have you covered throughout the series. Probably after every game, or if not after every one, at least after 2 of the 3 games, we will have podcast content for you. We do pledge, and I will follow through if nothing else. If we get news that we don't want on Monday, we'll do an emergency podcast. If we don't, then we may not, but we'll see. Stay tuned for all of that. Please subscribe to the show anywhere you might find podcasts. Scott, anything to share before we sign off?
Nothing to share. If Austin Riley is listening, he can have my hand for the rest of the season. I do not need it to do podcasts, so I am willing to make that sacrifice. Let's hope for good news. We will likely do a show regardless of what the news is on Austin here in the next couple days. So, of course, please hit that subscribe button. And Brad, we'll be back soon with another show. Let's hope for some good news.
You said it well. Please follow us on all social media pages. We got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Follow Scott on the Twitter machine at Scott Coleman 55. Follow me there at BT Rowland. Also follow our co-hosts. That is Sean Coleman and Stephen Tolbert. You can find them on there as well. One more plea to subscribe to the podcast. Someone asked me, I'm not making this up. Someone asked me the other day, does it help to subscribe or can I just click on the podcast? Listen, just subscribe to the podcast. Do it multiple times. It's the best way to possibly help us with the charts and people discovering the podcast. I'm not an expert on these things. People above us tell us these things. But the best way to support the show is to check out our sponsors in addition to all of this, but also please subscribe and download and click, do the YouTube subscription. We definitely thank you for all of your patronage. I very much appreciate it, as does Scott. And we'll sign off now. We'll see you all later this week. Hold your breath on Austin Riley, and we'll see you all next time.